Hey guys, Wandering Beast here, and today is a very exciting day. I have been wanting a solution for a bumper for the adventure bus basically since the first day I got it. The black bumper you guys have seen if you follow my Instagram or all of our trips and stories out to the backcountry is merely just a black spray painted chrome bumper that came on this thing when it was hauling little old ladies around. It never matched the aesthetics or protection level that I need for the backcountry. There are some really great bumper options out there. Maybe we'll do a separate review about that. But today we're going to be putting together a Move bumper. If you guys have not heard of Move bumpers before, Move bumpers are a kind of a DIY solution for guys that have a welder, have a little bit of fab skills, and are willing to put in some time to save a lot of money and have a really cool, functional, protective bumper. Their first styling was a little bit larger than I really liked. Although I loved their wraparound protection. You could get it with a full grill, you know, sort of bumpers, headlight protection, just beautiful bumper. But the bottom was a little big for what I wanted. Never really pulled the trigger on it. I started looking around at other bumper solutions. The prices are a little bit higher than I really ever wanted to pull the trigger on. Even Weld Tech that did my suspension, they had a DIY solution. However, it didn't include any of the tubes, so I would need to have a fabricator or put in more money to get some tube rolling or tube bending equipment in order to finish that bumper off. With the Move bumper that I've got here, their normal one, this is now the Embark series, everything is provided. You're still going to have to cut some stuff off and grind some stuff, but a lot of the plate work and a lot of the bulk fabrication has been done that allows you to sort of just put this together on the vehicle. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm very excited. There will be a link down below. If you use my code, you get some money off. It also lets you guys know that you guys found them through my channel. It does help support some of the things that I'm trying to do here. So saying that, this Embark does not have full bumper wraparound protection. And that is something I definitely want. So in the future, we will be fabricating something or a solution for that. So stay tuned for that. But for right now, let's get started on this bumper. All right, give you an idea. Here's some of the, well, sort of pre-production. These are the 3D models that you might have seen on my Instagram, built up for the E350. You can see 92 to 07, E250 or 350. But you can see what we're going for here is kind of boxing in this front frame section, and then we're going to add the tubing flares to the side, and that should give nice underground protection as well as give us a place to mount the winch and our diodynamics lights. And then down the road we will look at adding some grill protection. But this 3D modeling also kind of gives you an inside look at what these mounting plates, so these are really nice. You know, I think they're at least 1/4 inch if not bigger. I'll have to those actually might be a little bit larger. You can see they've got some notches here. Certain holes are drilled to interface with, and then we've got some bracketry that's already cut and bent for us. It's going to interface with the outside tube here on the outside once we get those prepped up. But first thing we're going to do is get this front box section. The instructions they send, they give you kind of an overall layout of what parts and pieces you should do. It's not exactly a step-by-step, but pretty close. They do a great job. So what we're going to do is this front cover. This piece here is the piece that I've got cut out for the winch, and then that top tube, and then these two side plates. So we're going to get that tacked together, and then we're going to run that interface with where it attaches on the bumper. All right, well, first things first, before we can do anything else, we got to get this old bumper. Of course, I also recommend washing thoroughly your bumper. Don't do like I did and go out muddying out in the snow and then try to change the bumper. Well, sometimes just need a little persuading. One side. Alright guys, well I just spent the morning actually re-welding in some holes that I had drilled. The way Move Bumper designed this is this piece here will basically interface with the bottom scoop, and I'll put in some photos here. What I looked at doing was reversing it and putting this 90-degree up against the face so that my winching surface matched up better to the fair lead holes. Alright, so the front fair lead plate here, if I would have turned this around 90 degrees, it nearly perfectly mates up to where you can see the flat part of the winch plate integrates directly into there, and your winch drum would spool right through here. The only reason I didn't like that is twofold. One, the reason I just had the holes drilled into this winch plate was because I was running an interference with the front of the 12,000 pound drum of the winch was hitting the front of the back of this plate. So I had those drilled out just as kind of a test to see if we can make it happen, but it really put the winch too high above the bumper, and I didn't really care for that. So I am going to go back and fit this kind of the way Move Bumpers designed it, and again I'll show you a quick photo. Alright, that's the best I can kind of do. That's the winch plate mount, so you can see that it does not interface with that front fair lead plate. It interfaces with that 3 bend front panel. And again, I'll try to put in a photograph and maybe zoom this in. The instructions aren't the best, I will say, and there's also a lot of interpretation as you build this together. So I've already had this tacked up, decided that that was going to be too high above the bumper, and I didn't really like the way it looked. So like I just said, I spent the morning re-welding up those holes that I just had drilled. I want to thank the guys down there at Dirt Road Garage because they got me in quick and had it turned around, and it was an experiment. It just didn't work in the end. So I've filled those back up, got those radiuses nice and cleaned, and we're going to get this tacked up. And if I put in a picture from the side, you'll see I've got some space underneath here, and I'm not real pleased with that. I would love to be able to box this whole piece in. However, I don't know that I would be able to get access to the winch bolts down here. So I could just box this in and weld this piece. However, you'll see as I put in a photo here, the front then wouldn't be lined up very well. So if I did that, I've got effectively just this angle, this bend of steel that's supporting all that winch movement. And I would love to button it up so that it's now on this front face and I can weld it into the fair lead and it just won't be attached to the front. But then that doesn't leave me a lot of meat up here, again, pulling on that 12,000 pound winch if I'm in a good hole. So what I'm going to end up doing is probably trying to brace this piece on this last lip just so I don't have this space. And yeah, I'll just have to use some spare steel that I've got and just kind of brace that in because I want to have access to the bolts underneath here if I need to change winches or whatever I need to do in the future. Alright, so getting this guy kind of buttoned up again, trying to line up this face with this piece here. The piece that comes forward is a little bit too long, and so I think if I bevel and grind this back to better match that angle, I'll put in a close-up here. My fair lead front plate needs to go on this front piece. So really about the only place it can go is on this face. And again, what I'll probably do is I've got some pretty sturdy C-channel here that I had for another project. I might just cut some pieces to burn into here and then just tie that piece in. So I don't have any front flexion from the winch if I'm trying to pull something very hard, help box this whole piece in. But first, what I need to do is get this ground down a little bit more so this can be a flush mount piece, just so I don't have to fill that gap in with weld a little bit stronger and just match up a little bit nicer. And then again, that fair lead plate is going to come down right here and meet the winch. I've got the front plate that interfaces with the frame of the E350 attached to the right angles so that the notches back here are interfaced correctly. The only thing I have to go with are these sort of front drawings that show the notch down here closest to the frame of the bus and then angled inward. So that's the only thing I've sort of copied. That wasn't really clear in their instructions in here. In fact, they want you to box this entire section in first and then attach it. And I just think just accessing the welder and fabbing this up, this will work better this direction. But what you're looking at is the front pieces are now attached to the fair lead plate, and that gives me not just centered on the bumper here, but also allows me kind of height control. I wanted to make sure that I was leaving as much meat as possible, so I've got it tacked down here and brought out, and there's a little bit of lip that I can access the top just to make sure that this is burned in complete. But we're going to get the rest of this just tacked up. All right, well, this is just kind of a temporary fit here. So again, winch plate tacked onto that front face. We will re-support this in a future. I've slid the fair lead plate down the front of that and then just tacked it on the sides. And then we're going to mount it up to the truck and just see how everything works. I'm going to put the winch on here just sort of loosely and just make sure everything lines up the way it should. And then I will actually pull it back apart, burn in the winch plate really good. I want to burn in all of the angle onto the front fair lead before I put the caps on. And that was part of the reason of not going in the order that they suggested, simply because if you were going to put the end caps over here, you wouldn't be able to reach the outside of this angle on the fair lead place, and I really think that needs you know, inside and out, since that's what's attaching to your vehicle. And I still may even add more reinforcement than these 4 bolts. It's 3 here. I'm going to drill this out so there is a 4th hole and reinforce what's on the frame, and then maybe even put a bottom plate and attach it that way. So stay tuned for that, but we're going to get this bolted up and see what she looks like. I've just thrown in sort of 2 bolts. I want to see what kind of access I have, and honestly I feel like this could be sucked up closer to the rig and not stick out so much, but that would require more fab work. So I think for now we'll leave this as is. I may set the winch in there, make sure everything kind of lines up. Alright, well, she's in there. This will of course have the fair lead. I still may radius some of the steel corners back here. I really don't want any of that abrading the synthetic line. With the fair lead in there, it should help center it. The drum is pretty close to this front plate. However, I think it'll be okay. It's pretty centered this way and pretty centered there. So I'm happy with where it sits. Again, my only issue, I think, when my initial plan was to lift it up, just to make sure that we had a clear out for this synthetic line without the potential of coming up from the bottom of the drum or down. So I do like it sitting inside the bumper though. That is a much better design. It's just kind of wish the fair lead plate hole was lower and would line up a little bit better with the winch. Alright, the winch plate is burned in, stitched across the front. This piece is fully welded, and then I've added this very thick piece of steel to sort of gusset these sides. Talking to Move Bumpers, this is effectively a universal winch plate. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I would have liked to have flipped this around and probably used this 90 up against the front. However, it moved the winch itself way out of the sort of the basket that you're creating here in the bumper. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking together. What I've done is I've taken the 2 wings and I've tacked the wings on, and now literally what I'm going to take is the piece I have here, which is the front fair lead winch plate. I've got the angle iron piece that's got the little notch, right? And we're literally just going to set this in here and kind of index it. Now, I would love this to sit as low as possible, just for, you know, aesthetics, to get the bumper, because the lower this piece is mounted in here, the higher this is actually off the ground in the van. So I don't think it's going to hurt to get an inch here too, but what I'm looking at now is basically where this is going to hit when I put the tube in. Alright, so I just have the front fair lead just clamped temporarily on here, and I'm going to take the center tube section. It does have effectively a spot to sit on this wing that is radius. Now the problem is, if I put this fair lead down and I weld this up at the top, that creates a bit of a gap right here. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'm going to tack this tube on the side wing to where it fits properly, and then I'm just going to bring up this fairlead plate so that it rests on that tube, so that I don't have too much of a gap right here. And if I put that down, that literally leaves these wings with a big chunk in here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright guys, bringing you in close. So what I was talking about, this wing piece that effectively is on the front panel here is just tacked in, but it's tacked on the outside, if you can see that. So this center tube has the length that means these side wings are going to get tacked on the outside at the end of this front panel here. This piece here is radius perfectly to index with this tubing. It's got the same radius. So if I tack that here and leave it, you can see that gap on the fairlead plate. So what I'm going to have to do is bring this up a little bit, and that'll tell me exactly where this plate is going to get burned into the front panel. Alright, got the tube tacked in there as you saw. I raised up and just have the fairlead clamped in place. Kind of looking to see what the reveal is down here. Make sure I've got enough meat to kind of tie that in. Stitch it in the front and the back. And then I think we're looking pretty good. I like how this is set up. What I'm going to do is unclamp this fairlead plate, take all that out, and that's going to allow me to get to the inside of the wings and to be able to fully weld in this tube. Otherwise this plate is just going to interfere with it all. And then we're going to get this back in, and I can stitch along this full face here, stitch on the outside on those two little tabs, and get this all buttoned up before we get it back on the truck. Alright, got it clamped up. I just kind of made a quick mark with a Sharpie where it's going to be on the tube and here, so that when I pull this back off, I can just clean it with a flap disc. And then we're going to get spot welded, put it on the truck, and then we will start mocking up the end tubes. Thanks for all the love and support. You guys are amazing. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow the adventure on social media, and we'll see you on the road.